Have you ever had one of those nights when you just can't shake the feeling that something small you do might end up changing everything? Not in the movie Hero, kind of way more like the tiniest choice in the middle of total chaos could be what someone else remembers for the rest of their life. I never used to believe that. Honestly, until the night, I realized sometimes the quietest acts of courage are the loudest in someone's heart. So picture this, it's 2 a.m., the corridors at St. Mary's Medical Center in El Paso are humming like always, lights flickering, antiseptic in the air, you know the vibe. I was there, working night shift, blending into the background like I always do. People called me reliable, dependable, never the one to cause trouble. My name? Isabella Cruz. And let me tell you, most folks have no idea the kind of secret powers the quiet ones are holding. I was always told, growing up, that you get by easier if you keep your head down. Be helpful, work hard, and for the love of God, don't give anybody a reason to single you out. So yeah, that's what I did. Never used Spanish at work, though I speak it as naturally as I breathe English. Didn't want to draw attention, didn't want people to question if I belonged. You know what I mean? But that night, the whole place was upside down. Some pile up on 10 people flooding in, stretchers everywhere, alarms beeping like crazy. I love the quiet between the chaos. Those little pockets where you can tuck a blanket under someone's chin or squeeze their hand and remind them they're not alone. But there was no calm this time, only the sharp sound of someone sobbing, cutting through the hallway like a blade. Loud, desperate, full-on panic. It was a woman, tucked in a corner of the waiting room, voice stumbling over Spanish so fast nobody else could catch a word. But I could. Oh, I could. She was begging to know about her son. He'd been hit by a car, rushed into surgery, and nobody was answering her because nobody understood her. You ever freeze in a moment like that? Knowing if you step forward, everything might change, maybe not just for you, but for them too. I stood there, caught between every fear I carry my whole life and every lesson my mother ever whispered about kindness being a responsibility, not a risk. The security guard started toward her, all business and no patience. The doctor just shook his head and walked off. Even the social worker looked like she wanted to disappear. So I stepped in. I told myself, this is it, I say. Be the bridge, not the bystander. I sat down next to her, knees shaking, heart about to leap out of my chest. Senora, I whispered, I'm Isabella, a nurse here. Tell me what you need. The relief on her face hit me like a wave, as if she'd been drowning, and finally someone reached her. ¿Hablas español? She asked, hope breaking through the terror. I nodded. Dígame, cuénteme sobre su hijo. She let it all spill out. Her son Diego, only 8, knocked off his bike. She didn't know if he was alive, if he'd wake up, if he'd ever come home. I listened to every word, translated what I could, but mostly I just stayed with her. I held her hand. Sometimes that's what people need more than answers. Well, I didn't realize someone was watching. Not God, not fate. Ethan Blaine, the CEO, the face from all those framed photos in the hospital's main hall, looking like he never cracked a smile in his life. He was up in the observation room, doing one of his surprise rounds, try to catch the staff off guard. I guess he thought he'd see what really happens when nobody's putting on a show for the boss. And what he saw, me risking my neck, breaking the protocol just to help a terrified mom understand her son might make it. I found out later, Ethan was ready to write up a memo about communication failures, hire new translators, all that. Instead, he watched a nurse in Navy scrubs kneel beside a stranger and turn fear into hope. I guess that's what hit him hardest, that the real medicine isn't always in the drugs or machines, but in connection. After about an hour, once Diego was out of surgery and stable, I stayed with Maria, that was her name, until she could see her boy. But the next morning, instead of a thank you, I got called into the office. Director of nursing, ice cold, told me straight up I'd broken the rules. You're not a certified interpreter. What if you'd made a mistake? What if you'd given her wrong information? She wrote me up, said it'd go on my record. Yeah, that happened. I walked out of that office feeling lower than dirt. For a second, I thought maybe I'd been a fool. Maybe you really are supposed to keep your head down, let the system do its thing, even when it fails people who need help the most. The shame burned. But then, 3 days later, just as I was sitting alone in the cafeteria, Ethan Blaine himself walked over. Expensive suit, tired eyes, not the kind of man you expect to say much of anything, let alone thank you. He sat down, and the first words out of his mouth were, "I want to thank you for what you did for Mrs. Gonzalez." I told him I'd been reprimanded. I thought I was about to get fired on the spot. But instead, he told me about a night when he was 16, alone in a Mexican hospital with his father dying, unable to translate what his dad so desperately needed to say. He never forgot that feeling of helplessness, never forgave himself for not being able to bridge the gap. He said, "Watching you with Mrs. Gonzalez, I realized we're building walls where we should be building bridges." Then he offered me something I never expected, a chance to run a foundation he wanted to start for people like Maria, for families lost in the system because of language. I almost laughed. Me? I'm just a nurse. But he shook his head. "You're the bridge. You know how to see people nobody else does." I was terrified. Public speaking, fundraising, all the things I'd run for my whole life. But Ethan told me, if it scares you, it probably matters. And right then I understood. Sometimes you don't get to choose when you step into the light, but you do get to choose if you stay there. 6 months later, we opened the doors of the Blaine Community Bridge Foundation. The space looked nothing like a hospital, bright murals, comfy chairs, laughter in the halls. Maria Gonzalez herself was our first volunteer, Diego by her side, healthy and beaming. The word spread like wildfire. Suddenly, people came in speaking Spanish and didn't have to apologize for it. They came in scared and left feeling seen. The revolution wasn't loud, but it was real. I won't lie, those first months were rough. I tripped over my own words on live TV. My hand shook before every meeting. But I started to believe what Ethan saw in me, that gentle isn't weak, that the ones who listen quietly are sometimes the ones who change the room. We built something from scratch, and the community built it right along with us. Ethan? Turns out, he used to be a doctor before his dad died. He thought running the company was how you honored a legacy, but now he thinks maybe it's living with heart that keeps the best part of someone alive. We never fell in love, not like the movies. But we found something maybe rarer, two people who stopped hiding and started showing up for the ones who need it most. Now, the Foundation's model is everywhere. Cities call to learn how to copy us. Families who felt invisible now walk through our doors like they belong, because they do. And every time someone thanks me, I remember that night in the hospital, the tremble in my knees, and I know courage doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's just a hand on a shoulder, a word in the right language, a choice to see someone, even if you're scared. So here's my question for you. Have you ever stepped forward when you were terrified? Have you ever risked comfort to do what was right, even when nobody thanked you at first? Because if you have, or you hope you know, that's the kind of courage this world desperately needs. Share your story. Speak up in the comments. Let's talk about what it means to do the right thing, even when the rules say no. Because every act of kindness, every moment of connection, changes the world, even if it's only for one person at a time. And that, my friend, is how the quietest voice sometimes leaves the loudest echo.